Now let's go to 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 19. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 19. And here it says, "Therefore let those who suffer according to God's will entrust their souls to a faithful Creator while doing good." And let's read a little earlier, just to get the context of this last verse. It says, "Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you. But rejoice insofar as you share Christ's sufferings, that you may also rejoice and be glad when His glory is revealed. If you are insulted for the name of Christ, you are blessed, because the Spirit of God because the Spirit of glory and of God rests upon you. But let none of you suffer as a murderer, or a thief, or an evildoer, or as a meddler. Yet if anyone suffers as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify God in that name. For it is time for judgment to begin at the household of God. And if it begins with us, what will be the outcome for those who do not obey the gospel of God? And if the righteous is scarcely saved, what will become of the ungodly and the sinner?" And then it goes to verse 19, which we were reading earlier, a moment earlier. It says, "Therefore let those who suffer according to God's will entrust their souls to a faithful Creator while doing good." So this passage speaks of good versus bad suffering. Some people suffer because they brought it upon themselves because of their sin or iniquity or unrighteousness, and some suffer because they are connected to the Spirit of Christ. And if you're connected to the Spirit of the Anointed One, you will begin to do the same things that the Anointed One did. It is just that simple. It's interesting to me how many preachers who do believe in the power of the Spirit, who understand that we're connected to a powerful and awesome God, can see that connection only in the context of doing miracles, of doing great and mighty things, and prospering economically, and doing all these other things in the natural, but they do not connect to the side of Christ, of the Messiah, that has to do with suffering. But that is the central point of our relationship with Him. Therefore it says, "Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you. But rejoice insofar as you share Christ's suffering, that you may also rejoice and be glad when His glory is revealed." Why? Because, as Romans says, those who suffer with Him will be glorified with Him. We can only share in His glory if we're willing to share in His suffering. And it's not a masochistic suffering. It's not you taking a knife and cutting yourself just to say to other people that you're suffering. It's not being sad and gloomy and depressed all day just to show other people that you're suffering. That's not the point. The point is submitting yourself to God's will, doing exactly what He tells you to do, and understanding that He will send you to places, and He will send you to do things that will imply a great deal of pain and suffering in your life. Your soul will be exposed to that suffering. But as that happens, you will be releasing something into the air, something powerful that will transform the people and even nations around you. That's how powerful the anointing of Christ is when it falls upon a person. So if you're willing to suffer with Him, you will share in His glory, and that is an important principle that we must always remember. So we can say that characteristic number 6 in our study of the soul versus the spirit is the fact that the soul is the one that's mainly exposed to suffering. As you've noticed, none of the verses we read mention the spirit at all. For example, this last verse we read says, "Therefore let those who suffer according to God's will entrust their souls to a faithful Creator while doing good." Why the soul being entrusted to God? It's as if Peter is saying here, our souls are the ones who are going to suffer. They're the ones who are going to complain the most when our suffering comes. That's why in Job chapter 14 you hear Job saying all these pessimistic things about humanity, because his soul was burdened, his soul was suffering, and therefore when that happens, when our soul is burdened, we have to entrust ourselves to a faithful Creator. Why does it say Creator? Because a Creator has a design and has a purpose. When somebody creates a new product, they create it with a design in mind and for an intended purpose. So when you recognize that what is going on in your life, and let's exclude the cases where you're suffering because you brought it on yourself, but in the cases where you are suffering and you know that it's not because of something you have done, you have to remember that there is a Creator. In other words, a person who has a design and a purpose. And He designed a set of circumstances for your life so that you will go through them. And as you go through them, a purpose will be released into the spiritual atmosphere. That's why it's talking about entrusting our souls to a faithful Creator. And why faithful? Because when He starts something, He finishes it. And He waits for you to get along with Him, get in line with Him. And if you get in line with Him, then the purpose begins to get carried out, not only in your life, but in the lives of all the people that have been entrusted to you. Each one of us has a circle of people and even nations that we have been entrusted, and we've been given the responsibility to forge the purposes of God in those people. And those are the ones that get the impartation of God as we abide in Him. If we are faithful in Him, then His faithfulness becomes manifested in the lives of others through us. So characteristic number 6, as we said, is the soul being exposed to suffering, as opposed to the spirit, which is rarely, if ever, as far as I know, ever mentioned in the context of suffering in the Bible.